Hey everyone, I'm Heidi Ferguson. This is Cocktails and Pajamas. And as my co host, Podesta, is working out the tech, I'm just going to share a little bit about the podcast. So, we started, I think this is our 38th episode, and we started this literally 38 weeks ago. And every once in a while, we will have a guest on. And this Gabriella is a friend of Foresta's. So I'm gonna when Foresta's ready, I'm gonna allow her to introduce Gabriella. But anyway, so I'm going to, besides introducing myself and letting you all know that I'm a psychic and a medium, and I also do spiritual guidance with my clients. Foresta, my right hand woman friend bestie, um, is a kick ass coach, life coach, and relationship expert. And she works with many individuals under the guise of Debbie Ford, who she was trained through. And in our relationship, I am aware of how she has guided me, and not like I we like whether or not she knows that she's been coaching me as we kind of go along in our like as we're doing this, but it doesn't feel like coaching. It's very organic, it's very natural, it feels like the right thing. And the things that I've learned from her have been phenomenal. um, yeah, so um, and I just want you all to know there's no like we're very transparent here. Mine is a fake background, although I'm a manifester, and so as I look at my background, I imagine myself in this space. I'm just like, oh my God, wouldn't it be so great to be wherever this is with the blue and white, lounges and the water and and I don't even know if it's a sunset or sunrise. It doesn't matter, but it's just gorgeous. And I think Foresta is in Italy, on the coast of Italy again. Yeah, and all the colors and the water, and then Gabriella will can let us know where she is, but it looks like some kind of a garden of some sort. So anyway, if you're ready, yeah, okay,
Thanks,
you're
Heidi.
welcome.
Beautiful. I love knowing that somehow I've been giving
Hmm.
you nudges along the way and really feel seen in that. Thank you. So, yeah, welcome, Gabriella. You are a cosmic sibling, a childhood friend. We were acknowledging that we had no classes together in middle school or high school and somehow found a way to each other, sleepovers, and we'll get into some of that. Thank you so much for showing up. You have been such a bright light in my life, and I'm really excited to have us all connect and really just it's authentic relating and sharing from really what's alive for us right now as human beings, as women, as everything that we are in the world. So that's kind of my first question coming into this. What's alive for you? What do you want to be seen in?
So I'm going to twist it a little bit because I typically go first, and I'm going to put you in the hot seat, Miss Foresta. Um, and model for us what that is. Yeah, so just model for Gabriella and I as far as what that is. So what would you like to be seen in, and where are you right now in your life?
Mm, yeah, thank you. I just had the most delicious in person meeting with Lindsay, a dear friend of ours. It's the first time I got to meet her in person in this life, anyway. And it was just magnificent, like the kindred spirit energy. I'm so nourished, and I can tell when it's the right kind of people because I'm filled up, like my heart is full, um, versus depleted, right? Which can happen too. And just getting to meet someone I've actually built a bond with only digitally, right? Lindsay and I and you, we've done workshops together, we've supported each other. It's all been on Zoom, and this was like a tangible three-dimensional, well, five-dimensional being like in front of me. Um, yeah, just how much I'm treasuring that right now. In person, enjoying the outdoors, like real human beings. Uh, yeah, it's feeling really up there. And then, as I shared with you, having some contention with another friend and just navigating the struggle of not feeling seen, not feeling heard, not feeling met, um, and just being like, wow, what do I do here? Right? Like, I might be trained in this work, but I still struggle with, how do I have this conversation? Do I have this conversation? If it doesn't go well, do I let it go? And leaning towards asking for my needs anyway. And being curious if someone's willing to play, and if not, that's okay too. So that's a place I'm struggling and yet quite clear, which is an interesting feeling, like crunchy and clear. Yeah. Thanks for having me go first. It's an interesting feeling. Yeah, and I would love to hear from you, Gabby. What's alive for you in the moment? What would you like to be seen in?
I am so happy to be here with you and with Heidi and just have, our fun conversations where we can really be honest with each other and we can share how we're feeling and just really feel loved and supported. Um, I'm feeling, and I am not a feelings person. I usually don't realize I'm feeling something until you know, something happens and I react a little bit off. And I'm like, oh, well, that's not how I normally act. There's something else going on. And I'm like, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And today I was feeling sad. And it's no surprise, fresh to know, I've had my share of grief. I've lost both parents, and that's been difficult. Um, and I'm reminded that you can't really have your joyous moments if you don't have periods where you suffer a little and you grieve a little. Um, and believe it or not, this took me off guard, and I know better from 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 group grief counseling. But tomorrow is 20 years that I lost my mom, and half my life I've lived without her. I mean, she's you know of course I love her. I knew she loved me, and there's so many wonderful relationships that I had. I grew closer with my brother. In fact, earlier today I was chatting with, messaging with my aunts, my mom's sisters, and so I feel like really lucky. And I'm sad, but I'm not super sad. It's just marking an occasion and sort of just reliving maybe some memories, which I try not to do. I try to stay just present and not really dwell on the future or just live in the past in my thoughts. But I was like, you know what? It's appropriate for this week to think about her. So I was super excited when I got to speak to you. I was like, this will be like a warm cosmic hug from dearest Freshta.
Feeling that in my heart.
It was kind of a lot.
Yeah, it's um it's it is what it is, and I'm not saying that in a flippant way, because I think oftentimes that phrase is said kind of in a flippant way, and I want to invite you to bring whatever you need to bring here, for real, because whatever you bring is okay. We welcome it all. Um, so I'll check in. Um, as Foresta, as you know, I've been just, I feel like this, I feel like I'm in the midst of this pretty intense chapter right now. And one of the things that I have been working on is my internal health. And one of the ways that I've been doing that is I've been getting ozone therapy. And I there's, I'm not even gonna attempt to talk about it. It's just that it's been challenging in ways that I hadn't expected. And I'm also really working on embracing the challenge of it, because what I'm aware of is being an HSP, there's so many gifts in that. Like it feels like a lot, and it is a lot, right? Because it's a lot. And typically when people think about HSPs, or when I think about HSPs, let me speak for myself, I think emotional, like highly intelligent, highly sensitive people as, emotionally sensitive. And what I'm become more and more aware of is that it's affecting me. The sensitivity has gone to other places in myself, in my being. And um and it's not a bad thing, it's just something I'm noticing, and I'm just like, okay, so I feel like for whatever reason this season that's happening is happening, and I'm working on embracing it and navigating it as opposed to ignoring it, because I can do that. Like I can do denial like nobody's business, but to really embrace my full self takes a lot more courage and a lot more vulnerability and a lot more inner strength. Um, and so, when I say to you, Gabriella, bring it all, like bring it all. Like we all need to bring our full selves to our lives, to ourselves, to each other. Um, I think that's where the magic happens. Like I really believe that. I think in the quietness, in the pauses of life, when we let things simmer, that's where the flavors and the goodness happens. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that I'm like, okay, you turn the page and there it is. It's not like that at all. Um, but it's a process. So that's my check-in.
Yeah, thank you both. And I was thinking about, Gabby, the last time I had invited you to something, it was near Mother's Day or some other challenging time. So I'm noticing the cosmic energies that bring us together. Yeah, the cosmic divine orchestrations of this feel really potent. And Heidi, I'm hearing you in that place of like, hey, like I'm leaning into the suck and I'm actually okay and I have the tools and like would rather not, and there's something here.
Yeah.
So that feels awesome. Yeah. And I want to open this up. Like I'm feeling the energy of both a highly sensitive person, like the different kinds of HSPs, kind of curious here where we fall. And then how if this is true for you, how life is different when you don't question your sensitivity. Those are my two questions. And I'm a sensual HSP, so I'm all about sniffing the flowers and tasting the coffee and feeling the silk, and I can get very lost in senses, feeling like a spiritual experience, and being in a very dreamy liminal state if I don't tether myself. Um, and I feel like I get to enjoy every drop of life because of it. So, yeah. And there is like the intellectual HSP. There is sort of the psychomotor, the people that need to move and do stuff with their bodies. And there is the emotional, right? Really attuned to the field of energy. And I think we have all of them, but I'm curious if there's one you identify with, if at all.
I think I probably most identify with the emotional and the sensing. And two things that happened this week. So I watched um, Naomi Osaka's documentary on Netflix. So she's a tennis pro, Japanese Haitian tennis pro. And not only is she an introvert, like she's a highly sensitive introvert, and working on figuring out how to navigate the publicity and the media. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because I found myself literally just, I was crying. I wasn't sobbing. It wasn't a heavy cry, but I was like, oh my God, I hope she survives this, right? Like, I know that she probably will, um, but it's really hard. It's hard being a human, and then to be a sensitive human with all this stuff in your face all the time, and the cat, like all that. I don't know what I would do. Um, and then earlier today, I got a text from a friend of mine who she was describing some dental work. I'm not sure why, but she was describing some dental work and describing the pain that she's like, if you ever have this dental procedure, you definitely want to ask for anesthesia because blah blah blah. And I was just like, oh, like I literally felt like I was kicked in the gut. And I was driving my, should not have been looking at my text, but I was. I don't do it often. But I was, and I pulled over because
Oh,
I felt, I could literally feel the depth of that pain. And the tears just started flowing. And I just thought, okay, so last week with the documentary, this experience here, what's going on? So going back to, backtracking a little bit to what I was sharing when I in my check-in is, I'm just aware that there's more. There's so much more, and it's deeper. Um, and I'm not gonna. I'm not pushing it away. I'm gonna allow it and to allow it to happen. Yeah.
that's so brave, knowing that you're kind of feeling so deeply what
Mm.
people around you are feeling. That takes a kind of strength I can't fathom. Gosh, I wish I could hug you.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know all of the terminology, but from what I've gathered, HSP is a highly sensitive person. Um, does not surprise me that you're both sensitive people. Um, I don't know where I fall. Um, I would say that I'm more introverted. I would say that I'm very, well, I don't know why I do this. Maybe I can't help it. Maybe it comes naturally, but I, in any situation, I can kind of read people and I sort of see how they're feeling and why. And if they're a little guarded, I kind of probe a little, just ask questions. And I tend to, I mean, my brother would tease me about this. I give people the benefit of the doubt. And so if they're feeling something, I'm like, oh, this is what they're feeling, and this is why they're doing what they're doing. And but that said, I do find it to be exhausting to be around people. And my preference is to be alone, for it to be quiet. It's it sounds awful because I have relationships that are deep and meaningful, but people are exhausting. And in this, especially the past couple of years, but more so, I think that as friends and family live in different places, And we fortunately had tools like Zoom and Teams, and way back when, Freshton and I had Skype. um, but the video chats, I've been having more of them, and it's wonderful. Get to check in with family, but I find myself, I need to pace myself and say, okay, like I can do this, but I can't have a chat, a long, meaningful chat, even just catching up, or even just, talking about something silly. I can't do that every day. I just don't have it in me. And on days, if I'm working and there's meetings and phone calls and video chats and it's back to back, I feel so drained. I feel mentally exhausted that I kind of need to daydream. I don't even read much anymore because it's too taxing. But, enjoying a cup of tea, enjoying a glass of wine, cuddled up on the sofa with a furry pet or two, and just being still. Like that kind of, for me, keeps keeps me level. I need that time to myself. And my days, I've learned over the years, I'm better prepared for whatever happens in the day if I just have a couple hours in the morning. If I wake up without an alarm, I'm just waking up whenever I wake up and have a cup of coffee and just sort of sit, and preferably there's some sunshine. I'm really cranky if I don't get some sun, but I'm fortunate to live in a sunny spot. Um, but yeah, I sympathize with you both for taking on people's feelings, and I don't know how you shake it off, and I don't know why. It baffles me that you would not only feel what you feel, but choose to lean into that, you know?
Wow. Is it a choice? Yeah. Is it a choice? Hmm. And I'm appreciating your perspective so much and respecting your perspective. Um, and I don't think I would have it any other way. I wouldn't want to be any other way. That what other way? I wouldn't want to live within myself any other way. I don't know what that would look like. You know, um, I'm glad that I'm a feeler. It's. I feel like it's probably the cape, my superpower cape. I think it's probably my most efficient and powerful cape that I put on. Um, and because from a very young age, I've been the child in my family, and I have three siblings, but I've been the one in my family who goes, has always been drawn to the truth, been drawn to the feelings, been, if there's an injured animal, like I don't rest. I'm not the rescuer, but I'm just like, oh my God, can we do something for that? If a bird got hit by, like, whatever, it. I was always that. I was always that child, and yeah, at my age, I'm just like, I've embraced it. So um, I'm appreciating that, uh, and I'm really loving who I am in it and with it. Yeah. And I also wanted to respond to what you shared about, um, needing time to yourself, needing a lot of time to yourself. Same, same. Um, and I don't apologize for it ever, ever. I don't believe there's a reason to apologize for it. I don't have the energy to apologize for it. Um, And in the last, 18 months, we've all been doing this mostly in our communication. And because this has an energy all its own, it's a lot more intense. In my opinion, it's just a lot more intense because we're so focused. We're on screen. We're on camera. Um, I have been very, very, very picky about who I spend screen time with, and I don't apologize for it ever. My friends know who they are, and then the people that I'm not spending so much time with, I think it's become pretty clear. Yeah. I'm curious if you have anything to say about that, Podesta.
Oh, I have so much.
I'm so glad.
This is my favorite topic. One, I feel so grateful because everyone in my circle is like a highly sensitive introvert. So I know if we're spending time together, they really want to spend time with me. There's no pretense, right? There's no like, let's get brunch and like, who cares? There's like, oh, you are in my select group, and it's rare for me to let people in. So there's a certain joy and like love in that circle for me. Um, I need a ton of time to myself. And I'm blessed to have a partner who will snuggle me in the morning and then I'm like, go, go. Because my connection to source, my time to meditate, my time to have intuitive hits, to begin my day, to feel like first aligned and resourced with myself before I'm into other. Um, yeah, it's why people see a kind person, frankly. The few times, like I think 3 years ago, I missed one day of doing that, and it was like a miserable day from like start to finish. And I was like, yeah, okay, this is life affirming that what I am doing is working for me. Um, so that's one piece. And then I really feel a kinship here just around, I'm just feeling the field of like, we all have how we're wired, who we are. And I love this idea of not apologizing for it. You know, I struggled. I kind of went the spectrum between what both of you have said in terms of being sensitive, which is like feeling super sensitive as a child. Gabby, you met me around that goth stage where I was like, fuck it, I'm not gonna feel anymore. I'm just gonna hate everything, right? It was apathy as self protection, I think. And then being like, I'm an introvert. And then as a 20-something-year-old being like, no, I'm an extrovert. And then in my 30s being like, I think I'm an ambivert. I think I can do extro for a while and then I need to go intro and replenish. And then honoring that that's, you know, I can be on stage and talk to 20, 50 people in the next 3 days, not talk to anyone, almost like, you know, hang veils on the mirrors and just be like, I don't want to see even me. like, um, so I noticed that that's quite a spectrum. And now, like, even though every time I touch my heart, it's tender, doesn't matter what day it is, there's a tenderness here all the time. I remember taking birth control pills in my late 20s, early 30s, where I was a flatline. I didn't have highs, I didn't have lows. That's just how it expressed itself in my body. It felt kind of, I don't know if efficient's the right word. It felt kind of like, cool, yay. I didn't have my intuition. I did not have full expression. And the aliveness I have now, yes, it comes with pain and joy, as you said, Gabby. Same container for both. But that flat line, that half alive thing, that was miserable. Convenient and rather caged way of living for me. So I'm curious if there's anything that lands for you or if there's additions you want to make to that.
I've known that flat place. I guess it's probably been at least 7, 8, 9 years. I was on Wellbutrin for a couple years, and I don't think I realized until I went off of it, and I was like, oh my God, I was not feeling to my full potential. And it, like, as I say those words, I'm like, God, that sounds a little weird coming out of my mouth. But I did not have the ability to feel the capacity, like the capacity of the scale, which I know for Heidi Ferguson is really wide. Like my capacity to feel, and I feel it expands all the time. So to have that shut down to even a percent, not completely, but even to a percentage, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want it. I need to. I want to. It's important for me to feel it all. Yeah. The highs and the lows. Yeah.
You've both mentioned the the effects that medication has had on how you feel, what you perceive, and for me, I was I didn't know it at the time, but I was just very irritable for, like, I would hazard a larger chunk of my 30s than I care to admit. And I eventually discovered that I had food allergies, and I was able to eliminate things that were causing me headaches and were making me feel nauseous and, making me sleep for 10 hours a day. So things that were just very atypical, but I didn't know why everything annoyed me. Had a fair idea it was me and not the world that was that was wrong. Um, but really changing my diet and avoiding certain things helped so much. It helped me feel more like me. And I I don't want to say I felt younger, but I felt more. And that was, I just didn't know that, oh, dairy, oh, gluten, oh, seasonal allergies. It was always something that I blamed on something else. Oh, I'm tired because stress, or I'm tired because we have a bed that I really like and I want to spend time in it. But I went from having insomnia and only maybe sleeping, 4, 6 hours a day to that big leap. And I didn't really know why, but it was just a physical and some blood work, and who knows how long I had these allergies. But yeah, I later learned that apparently there are lots of food allergies in my family, and so it's been kind of interesting to. I think maybe now, being a Gen Xer like Fresta, we were kind of. I think our default mode, at least when we were preteens, was apathy. Um, but we've gotten it's more, I don't know, growing up in the 80s and 90s, there were things that we just didn't talk about, and now folks seem to be more open to sharing things that weren't discussed before, like cancer, like health issues, just being more open in general. And I kind of love being able, you mentioned the tennis pro, Heidi. I really love how more open and how these conversations are happening more often. And it's it's reassuring that there's folks, not that folks are struggling, but that folks are finding more commonalities, and maybe you're not alone in feeling a certain way or experiencing a certain thing.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's certainly part of the ethos here is, normalizing the struggle, normalizing even the celebrations, but having a place where, you can go, right? I think I personally had a more of a performative nature of like the bright, sunny, things are well place. And I know Heidi's called me on like, hey, when I talked to you on Saturday and you're, you know, like really revealing your struggles, and then on a recording you're kind of not, like what's going on there, and just noticing the confronting edge stretch of being vulnerable, right, of sharing it all, and and being loved in the messiness of it all, feel like that's probably a bigger thing for me. Like, will I be loved if I'm messy? If I'm not bright and contributory? You know, if I'm just a disaster and a dark cloud, like, will I still be loved? So it's interesting to just even notice like where sometimes I hold back personally. Um, and just opening up this conversation to something like Gabby, you and I have talked about, which is like the reality of grief, the process of grief, knowing that you are coming on a really, what feels to me like a profound anniversary. And Heidi, I open this up to you as well, just sort of grief as a emotion, as information, as a way to be into becoming more of ourselves. Yeah, just curious there.
Wow, grief. So Podesta knows that I lost my father, died very suddenly, literally suddenly, back in '07, 4 days after my 30 something birthday, 40 something birthday. I don't remember. How old am I? No. What is time? And the shock was so great because it was so sudden. And I don't think it matters if it's sudden or not. I think shock is, one of the stages of grief. And it probably took me 5, 6 months to get really through the shock of it before I was ready to be like, wow, he's really not here anymore. Um, and my father, interestingly, we had literally just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, and he died 3 weeks later. So anyway, my father was the adventurer in the family. Like, he was the one when my father served 20 years in the military, and when we got stationed to Panama, um, he came home really excited, and he got out the remember encyclopedias? He got out the encyclopedia, and he showed us Central America, and he was like, this is where Panama is, and this is about where we'll be living. And he just, like, of course we weren't like, I was 4. What did I know? Was I nervous? No, I wasn't nervous because I didn't know any better. But my mom, with 4 children under the age of 6.5, was very scared. So anyway, but my father was just one of these people who made lemon, like, just always made lemonade out of lemons. Just really made an adventure out of everything. And so even in his older age, even like, he was 73 when he passed. And so even in his older age, because both of my parents were very healthy. So they did a lot of traveling, and then he came back with stories about situations and experiences and whatnot. So I knew that they really were taking advantage of the experiences that they were having. And so I remember I had a voicemail on my phone that he had left me on my birthday. And at that time, I think I had Verizon. It doesn't really matter, but whatever phone carrier that I had only allowed me to save a voicemail for 30 days, which really sucks. Doesn't need to say that, it really sucks. And so the first thing that I forgot was how his voice sounded. And then I realized, I was like, oh my God, I don't remember what his voice sounds like. And I don't remember what his laughter sounds like. And I remember those were like the first stages of me moving out of the shock piece. I was just like, oh my God, Dad, where where are you? Like, how do I, how can I reconnect and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's been, it's just been one of those things where there are days where I can look at an old photo of him and I'm filled with joy because I see him in a really joyful and happy and funny state. And then my heart just kind of drops almost instantaneously. I go from one extreme to the other, and aware of how quickly those emotions can just do a 180 when I'm not expecting it, when I don't see it coming, and I'm just like, damn, that's that's some deep stuff, you know. Um, yeah, so grief is just for me is one of those experiences, one of those processes that I would say for the deaths in my life, um, are different with every person, with every human, with every animal, pet, or whatever. Um, yeah, it's, and I'm really aware that it's important to, for me, to allow myself to feel it all, to not numb it, to not try to push it away. Um, because I know this too shall pass, like it doesn't last forever. And and so if I've learned anything with emotions and feeling and grief is that piece, is to allow myself to give myself permission if that's what I need, but to certainly do that for myself. Yeah.
I really felt um, I really felt when you shared that you were maybe not remembering, the sound of your dad's voice. The it's funny how much our senses play such a such a huge part. Um, I I recall I was 21 when my mom passed, and I was so sad and just in denial, all the stages 2 or 3 times, but mostly settled on anger for a while. Um, but I remember it. So it was the end of July, and I kind of was angry that the world kept going and people kept living their life when this this my world was shattered. Um, and a couple months later, 9/11 happened, and the world kind of did shut down. And then I was like, oh, careful what I think and say, because this is, I really don't want anyone to have this kind of grief or to have this sense of feeling. Um, I I think this was about a year ago. I saw an interview that Anderson Cooper did of Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert. I don't know why I keep calling him Colbert. He tricked me. It stayed with me all this time later. Um, and at the time, Anderson Cooper had lost his mom, and so I was kind of attuned. I'm just more attuned when someone loses a mother in particular. You never, it's it's different, and you never really stop needing your mom ever. Um, but in this interview, Anderson Cooper was kind of in disbelief because Stephen had said something like he was grateful for the worst thing that happened to him, losing family at a young age. And, this was grief was fresh for Anderson. So he could not fathom, could not understand why you would ever be grateful. And his answer stayed with me because it helped him be more compassionate, and it helped him be more understanding and aware of when people around him were going through something, and it really deepened his relationships. And I certainly found that to be true for me. And it's, I don't know, it's still hard to say that I'm grateful for these awful things that happened, but they've certainly shaped who I am. And maybe it took, losing a second parent. I grieved the first one all over again, and maybe really worked through things that I hadn't, because, being in my 20s, I didn't want to be sad all the time. I wanted to kind of live. And at the time, I escaped into playing video games. I got really good at Super Mario, really, really good. It was my own little fantasy world. But what I noticed, maybe, being older, being 40 when I lost my dad a couple years ago, that I didn't even pretend that I was okay. I was sad, and I was really sad. And I was kind of in shock, kind of not really knowing what I felt untethered. I felt like if I didn't have parents, it was part of my identity, being their kid. So it felt just awful. And, therapy helped, talking to friends helped. And what's more is telling people how you are, or articulating what you need. And so I didn't even pretend. And I'm sure everyone I knew my light was gone, or it was really just dim for months and months and months and months. And there is no smiling, there is no spark. I'm sure my eyes were kind of dull. Like, I wasn't really altogether present. I was in my head a lot, reliving memories, And so but what stands out to me, what made it easier to accept what happened and to live with this event, was all the friends who shared a story or asked how I was doing. And if I gave an honest answer, they would share back and share something of themselves. So many of my relationships, so many of my friendships, I felt like maybe I moved more from acquaintances to friendships in more cases than I can count. And that's worth it. And so, instead of dwelling on what I've lost or dwelling on the people who aren't here, I'm so grateful for the relationships I do have and for the people who are here.
Thank you. I know that about you. I know that about your time. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I was going to say end rant. I feel like I could talk about grief all the time. It feels familiar, but not in a bad way, I guess.
Yeah. I remember the first time we spoke, and I can't even note if it was a month or 3 or 6. I have no idea. And what I felt from you was this earnest, sincere, authentic place that was deeper and richer. And I guess if I use the word humility in the best possible sense, just like cracked open. You've always been an authentic person, and it was like, whoa, and there's this other layer that's deeper. It felt like a gift to me to be let in, to be trusted, and to be allowed beyond any sort of facade that one might feel they have to put together in front of. It's like, I want to be with you when you're grieving. I don't want to put ice cream on top of something, like, it doesn't feel right to me. And I think as a friend, being let in when a friend is grieving feels really important to me. And that doesn't have a timeline. It doesn't have to be immediately. I understand that. Mm-hmm. Being let in some capacity to just hold space feels important to me.
grief makes people feel uncomfortable. You know, not everyone wants to listen to someone in anguish or crying or, you know, well intentioned. They may want to try to make you feel better. Um, and, you know, it's difficult for me to really feel things. So if I'm feeling it, I had to just, you know, say like to my partner or friends, I'm just, let me feel this. I'm sad and I want to be sad. I was loved. These people mattered to me. Um, and, you know, it, I don't know. But I recall making a lot of people feel uncomfortable when I answered questions honestly. How are you doing? And I love and appreciate you for always listening. And sometimes just listening is really, really hard to do.
Yes, 100%. And holding space for someone is probably one of the best gifts that we can give them. Yeah, feeling all that. And I also wanted to add that, you know, when someone is grieving, to invite them in to that grief, to that process is really profound and it's really special. And I will speak for myself when I say that it isn't just anybody that I would invite into that process. They're like maybe two or three people, maybe. Um, because I don't want to be fixed. There's no fixing. Just let me have my feelings, whatever they are, and hold space for that. So you know you were saying how different it is to lose a mother than it is a father, and I 100% wholeheartedly agree with you. And one of the things, because my parents were together since they were 10 years old, so they literally were lifetime. They've been together. They were together for a lifetime. My mother's now 86, and after my father passed, our relationship changed because there was space. There was more space for other people because they were really very much a unit, very much a partnership. And that's how they dealt with everything. That's how they were in relationship with the four of us kids, in relationship to the grandchildren. It was just kind of, we're a unit. We're always, you know, in agreement about this, blah, blah, blah. Um, and so for me, I've always been challenged in my relationship with my mother. I had a much better relationship with my father because he was much softer. He was more sensitive than my mother is. My mother is she's German Russian. She's very stoic, doesn't let anything kind of come between she and her shield of armor. And so after my father died, I mean, it took several years, but she softened. Like her shield came down a little bit, not all the way, but as I worked on myself and worked on my relationship with myself and how I wanted my relationship to be with my mother, even though it's not ideal to where I would want it to be, it's so much better than it was. And so because of the absence of my father and now there's a space there, I felt like there was more room for me. And I have to say, I didn't see that until maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I was doing a very specialized kind of therapy. And I was just like, oh my God, the space opened up and there was room for me to be in a different kind of relationship with my mother. Um, and that's not to say that I wouldn't do anything to have my father back living. but there's sort of a payoff, there's kind of like this trade-off, if you will. And so that's something that I've also battled with, because it's really uncomfortable, but it's hard. It's like, for me to be that honest and truthful, I'm just like, oh my God, am I going to be judged? But I'm just like, that's my truth. And that really is the truth. Like, our relationship wouldn't be what it is if my father was still living. So there's this, it's challenging. And there's a little pain there too. So
How interesting, when events happen that change your relationships. I would say that I was closer to my dad, and so losing my mom kind of threw me for a loop when I, barely felt like I got to know her as an adult and not mom. And what's interesting is that my relationship with my dad changed, and he lost a partner, and I felt like everyone grieves at a different pace. It felt like he either grieved too short, and I was grieving, my journey was much longer than he was, or he just wasn't sharing that. And so our relationship changed, and we were a little estranged for a while. My one parent, and it was not ideal. And I joke, but my partner had accidentally called my dad instead of me. My dad's name was Gabriel, my name's Gabriella. So he was just using voice, and it called him, and I had been trying to call my dad and he wasn't calling me back. And so I was just frustrated. And then, my dad calls Matthew. And I was like, what? You talked to my dad? And, it hurt, he would call. I mean, maybe he thought something was wrong, who knows? But he thought, oh, this might be important, let me call, instead of, oh, she's just checking in, or I don't want to share what's going on, so I'm just not going to talk. And it was just so frustrating for so long. He was in relationships that maybe weren't healthy, and he picked up hobbies. He was always big on hobbies. He had a wok cooking phase. He had so many phases. And, one of my laments is that I did not, and I joke often that I say I regret nothing when I've done something that maybe wasn't a good idea. The one regret I do have was the relationship with my dad as an adult, and how I wasn't more accepting of who he was. Maybe the relationship wasn't what I wanted, but it's what he could offer. And, if I had maybe trusted in him a little more, or maybe respected a little more, if a million things. But in the end, I grieved a lot because it was painful losing him. And I'm happy that I can think of him, and it's not about the end of his life. It's not about his struggles with health. It's not about any of the other struggles he had, but I can remember the silly times, and I, have good anchors and good memories. And so he loved soccer. He played soccer, coached soccer, we watched soccer. And the Gold Cup went on about the same time as the Euro 2020 tournament and ahead of the Olympics. So there's been lots of sports lately. And Argentina played in a final, and they won. And one of his idols was Leo Messi. And when he won his first tournament, as an Argentine, I thought my dad would have loved this. And I'm not sad that he's not here. I'm not sad that he didn't enjoy it. I can think of him and think of the influence that he had on me and be at peace with that. At least for now. We'll see. I'm accepting right now. That might change.
that's so sweet, that memory, because I Um, One of the things that my dad and I would do is um, we would watch professional golf together. And I'm not a player. My dad played golf, and we would also watch professional tennis together. And so every time there's a big golf tournament on, I just think, oh my God, I hope you're seeing this shot, Dad, because it's so great, you know. And same way with tennis, because like yeah, and he played. He actually made it to the Senior Olympics, and then he died the next year. He didn't go very far in the Olympics, but he made it, and I was just like, really, like my father made the Senior Olympics. Anyway, so yeah, just those, you know, those sweet memories of time together, and not that there were a lot of words spoken, but yeah, all of that. Yeah.
I want to appreciate you both for both like sharing how your experience was, but also normalizing that it can look very different. I had never thought of, you know, Gabby, for you, like in a way, in that moment, you kind of lost both parents in the estrangement and in the loss. And I think I've just had this myth running in my head that like a family gets closer in a loss, right? Sort of the best case scenario, perhaps, of, well, then everyone comes together, bands together, grieves together. And of course, everyone's got their dysfunctions and their way of treating grief and their armor, as you said, Heidi. And it's like, oh, yeah, there's almost like a secondary layer of grief I'm hearing. It's like there's the primary loss, comes a motorcycle, and there's what you lose in the loss, which is really powerful, and I appreciate having that awareness. So thank you.
You mentioned coming together and having a loss bring you together, and I feel like my brother became my favorite person on the planet after our mom passed. We had this shared thing that happened, and I, you know, we went from being like teenagers to young adults, and um, I felt like awful at him that he didn't have as long as I did with our mom. I felt a little guilty about that, actually. Um, and it took him getting married and having like a really big, happy, celebratory occasion for me to kind of let go of that feeling in the back of my head, like she should be here. Like, if only she were here. Like, why is she missing this? And he's married to an amazing, amazing woman. I love her. And I feel just as close to them as I don't know. I feel just so close to them. And we live in different states. But when we video chat or we keep in touch or we see each other again, it's like we're kids again, and we're silly and goofy and already having a closer bond. And then we lost our dad, but we were in it together, and um, we were both married, and our team they nicknamed themselves Team Spouse, and they really came out big in so many ways of averting things just to give us the time and the space to do, you know, the million things you have to do when someone passes, but to really just be sad and to just take on things. They were our little gatekeepers. Team Spouse, they had a little symbol and everything. And I love that, I don't know, even when things are shitty, like we were still finding ways like to laugh and have a little bit of fun and lighten the mood a bit.
I love hearing that. Yeah. Um, as I shared about my father, he was the one with the corny sense of humor, you know, and made fun of himself, and yeah, he was just always kind of the jokester, and like the typical kind of dad jokester kind of person, um and really thought he would like he really thought he was funny. He really thought he was genuinely funny, and I was just and I would let him have it. I'm like, if he thinks that, good for him. Because really, like, like we were laughing at the beginning trying to get this off the ground, and I'm just like, I really believe there's so much healing and medicine in laughter and the lightness of it, not to dismiss the other, but I personally, I need that levity. I need the balance. I need the yin and the yang of all of it. Um, because without it, I would be literally out of my mind. I know that I would be. So, yeah, just really appreciating having times in life when I don't need to be or have to be so serious. And yeah, so
I'm loving that because it's reminding me, Heidi, of like when my grandmother passed away, and it's like 400 people show up to honor her, and there's I had this idea of like, cool, I'm going to be the hugger. I'm going to be the one that listens to all the stories, because in a lot of ways that nourishes me, and it's a bit of a bypass where I don't have to feel my stuff just yet. I can be of service. And after hugging like 400 people who, let's say, mind you, are in their 60s, who are like, your grandmother used to give us cookies in the village when we were little, like that level of carrying the stories, but then also hugging and feeling the pain. Um, and just, Muslims also kind of sit a shiva, right? It's like the Quran's being read, everyone sits around and cries. It's excessive for my highly sensitive disposition. And my mom and her sister, who's my cousin's mom, they were like, go do something for yourselves. Like they know us to be highly sensitive, and they also know, at a certain point we're going to malfunction if we're stuck in that stew only. So we went and played laser tag. Not even kidding you. We took the cousins and we went and played laser tag. We had some beers and we ate some kind of hot brownie skillet goodness. And we watched on that TV at the bar like hairband rock videos. It was perfect. And it just gave us a moment to be human and replenish. And it was just so sweet that our moms were like, yeah, like you've been here, wake, the funeral, the crazy fullness of grief, like all grief all the time. And something beautiful that happened in the days to come is like, yes, there was crying and there was hugging and but there was also like bringing someone food. There was also like little pranks, like people would ring the doorbell and run away. This was my immediate family, right? Little punkings. And it was like, it illustrated that all was welcome, right? You could be crying in the corner if you need to cry. You could be noshing on stuff if you need to nosh. You can be the one punking somebody, putting their flip-flops in the freezer, whatever. Like, it became actually more honest, in my opinion, to include all of it, instead of being like, all we can do here is grieve the human condition. Like, so I just give props to, those who birthed us for being like, go do something insanely different. And for like a family that kind of like knows how to laugh and have the memories and cry and feel the grief, because I think it feels healthier to me to have all of it. Yeah. Thank you for bringing it today. I'm owning we've gone over time, and it feels right that we did. So,
hey, nice.
yeah, thank you both.
Mm,
And we normally
thank
like
you.
to do something fun towards the end just to like shake it up. Are we going chat pack?
I think we're gonna go chat pack.
So this will be a question that's a little less, well, I don't know what it'll be actually, but it'll
It's
be,
it's it's really low key and easy. Okay. What is the most relaxing activity for you?
That's tough.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
really tough. I'm an overthinker though, so I I guess that's it. I like daydreaming. That's
Oh,
that makes me happy.
I love
Just
that.
letting thoughts carry me, going down the rabbit hole, whatever it is, that's what makes me happy.
I love that.
I will,
Podesta?
I will say savoring.
Mm.
I think like basking in the sunshine, looking at the butterflies, smelling the cinnamon on my coffee, like feeling the warm mug, like feeling the breeze through my hair. Like it's a savoring quality. If I can savor and have that kind of time to luxuriate, I feel deeply steeped in like an ease and a relaxation. Yeah.
Mm. I couldn't come up with one answer. Um, so the first thing that came to me is a siesta, like a really good, solid siesta nap. Yummy. Cooking. I love to cook. The whole like shopping for the food, the prepping of the food, letting it simmer on the stove, all of that. Um, and then meditating. I, yeah, filled by that. So thank you, ladies.
Thank
This was
you.
lovely. Thank you, Gabriella, for being with us, for being our guest.
Thank you for inviting me into this space. I
It's so
feel,
lovely to meet you and
yeah,
chat with you and share with you and learn about you. And
And feel you.
same. Same.
yeah.
I'll say this, I feel relaxed after this for sure.
Oh, good.
Mm, thank
Good.
you both.